When we think of the American Revolution, we imagine muskets firing, redcoats marching in tight lines, and George Washington leading his army across the Delaware River. But what if I told you that some of the most powerful forces shaping independence weren't on the battlefield at all? They were in secret meeting halls, smoky tavern basements, and candlelit lodges. Hidden networks, part rumor, part reality, may have changed the course of history. This is the story of the secret societies of the American Revolution. In the 1760s, tension was boiling in the American colonies. Britain was tightening its grip, demanding taxes through laws like the Stamp Act and the Townshend Acts. Red-coated soldiers patrolled city streets. Protesting openly could mean punishment, exile, or even being branded a traitor. For men and women who believed in independence, the safest way to resist wasn't always in public speeches or on the battlefield. Instead, it was in the shadows. And so, the earliest networks of American Revolution began as secret circles. One of the first was the Loyal Nine, a small group of Boston merchants, printers, and craftsmen. They weren't famous generals or politicians. They were everyday men who organized resistance behind closed doors. Their protests spread, their pamphlets circulated, and soon their efforts gave birth to something larger, the Sons of Liberty. The Sons of Liberty weren't just an angry mob. They were an underground organization with remarkable coordination. They intimidated British tax collectors, staged demonstrations, and orchestrated events like the Boston Tea Party. They communicated through coded messages, symbols, and discreet signals. Their membership stretched from New England to the southern colonies. By the time open war erupted, the Sons of Liberty had already built one of the first truly national networks in American history. But they weren't the only secretive group shaping the revolution. Many of the most famous names of the era belonged to another society, one older, more mysterious, and much larger, the Freemasons. Freemasonry had spread from Europe to the colonies long before the Revolution, carrying with it ideas of brotherhood, equality, and self-rule. George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, John Hancock, and Paul Revere were all active Masons. Inside their lodges, members swore oaths of secrecy, shared rituals, and communicated through symbols that outsiders could not easily understand. Did these lodges become safe havens for revolutionary plotting? Historians debate the answer. But what's certain is that Masonic networks built bonds of trust across social classes and across colonies. Franklin, for instance, used his Masonic connections in Europe to strengthen ties with French allies. Washington attended Masonic rituals even during the war, reinforcing bonds of loyalty among his officers. Were the Freemasons simply a social club for elite men? Or were they the hidden framework that allowed revolutionaries to coordinate right under the nose of British authorities? The truth, as always, lies somewhere in between. Beyond the Sons of Liberty and the Freemasons, there were whispers of even more clandestine networks. The Committees of Correspondence, for example, were not secret societies in the traditional sense, but they acted like one. Colonies hundreds of miles apart shared letters carried in secrecy, binding them together in a web of resistance long before they declared independence. Without this invisible mail system, colonies might have remained isolated, each protesting in their own corner, rather than united in a common cause. Then there were the tavern clubs, meeting places where men gathered under the cover of food, drink, and conversation, but where the real purpose was plotting. The Green Dragon Tavern in Boston is perhaps the most famous. To passers-by, it was just another pub, but Samuel Adams, Paul Revere, and other leaders of the Sons of Liberty met there often. Some called it the headquarters of the revolution. Behind its closed doors, they planned boycotts, protests, and even the famous Midnight Ride. The British, of course, viewed these groups as far more than nuisances. To them, they were criminal conspiracies, dangerous cabals bent on rebellion. Spies tried to infiltrate meetings, but secrecy was carefully guarded through codes, passwords, and even rituals. By the time the British grasped how deep and organized these networks had become, the colonies were already moving toward open war. So here's the question. Did these secret societies truly control the revolution? Or has their influence been exaggerated? Historians caution against painting them as puppet masters pulling the strings of history. Washington didn't win at Yorktown because of Masonic symbols. The Sons of Liberty weren't the only reason independence was declared. But what these groups did do was critical. They created networks of trust. They made it possible for dangerous ideas to be shared without fear. They allowed bold action to be planned in safety, and they spread resistance across colonies that otherwise might never have worked together. Without these secret meetings, radical voices may have been silenced. Without encrypted letters, colonies might have stayed divided. Without lodges, taverns, and underground societies, the first sparks of independence could have been extinguished before they ever became a fire. And after independence was won, many of these groups faded quietly into the background, but their influence didn't disappear. Freemasonry, in particular, continued to shape the young nation. Its symbols can still be found on American currency, in the layout of Washington, D.C., and in the rituals of presidents and statesmen. This lingering influence helped give rise to centuries of conspiracy theories. Was America secretly founded by Masons? Did hidden lodges direct the birth of the Republic? Or were these societies simply support networks for men who were already destined to lead? The questions have never fully gone away. What we do know is this: America wasn't only built on battlefields and public speeches. It was also born in whispered oaths, in candlelit lodges, in taverns where guards stood watch at the door, and in secret societies that blurred the line between rumor and reality. Were they patriots defending freedom, or conspirators pulling invisible strings? Maybe in the end, they were both. So the next time you imagine the American Revolution, remember, not all of its history happened in broad daylight. Some of it was written in secrecy, in shadows, in the places where no redcoats' eyes could see.